Chapter 24. Sunlight streamed down through a jagged hole in the roof of the shed. It was baking hot now, and sweat rolled down the sides of Pong's nose. Somkit picked up a small black metal box and held it in the beam of sunlight. "This was the hardest part to figure out," said Somkit. "I call it the catcher. You put it in the sun, like that. This one has already been sitting out all morning, so it should have soaked up some good juice." "Juice?" Somkit laughed. "Light juice." He pointed to 2 thin strands of copper wire connected to the black box. "The catcher grabs the sunlight, and it flows down through these wires to this." He pointed to a thick glass jar filled with cloudy liquid and a shaft of metal stuck in the middle. "This thing is really complicated, so I won't—" "Hey, don't touch!" Somkit swatted Pong's hand away. "That stuff will give you a nasty burn if you're not careful, okay? Anyway, I won't go into how that works, but basically the light juice gets stored in that, and when you attach these..." Somkit took 2 more wires with little metal clamps on the ends that looked like tiny bird beaks. He gently clipped one onto a flap of metal sheeting he'd fused to the switch on top of the orb. "You ready?" Pong nodded, backing away. The mention of getting burned had scared him. Somkit clipped the second clamp onto the metal sheet. Instantly, the orb glowed with a warm gold light. Pong's mouth hung open. "Whoa," he whispered. "Pretty good, huh?" said Somkit. "But look, this is the best part." He unclipped the orb from the metal bird beaks and held it up in his palm. It still glowed. He passed it to Pong. Pong held the orb out warily, then brought it closer. The light was bright, but the glass was cool to the touch. He thought about that day in the courtyard of Namwan, when the governor had stood before him and handed him a gold orb just like this. That had felt different somehow. When the governor made light, the air had crackled with pressure. There was something tense about the governor's orbs, something that made Pong nervous. But the one that Pong held now wasn't like that. It didn't buzz at all. Even though it glowed just as bright, it felt more natural. As Pong leaned closer, the orb blinked once, then went out. Somkit took the dull orb back from Pong. "It didn't have time to soak up much juice. If I leave it connected all afternoon, the orb will burn bright for a few days, even longer if I keep it switched off." Pong shook his head at his friend. "This is amazing. And you can do gold light even? The most powerful one?" Somkit laughed. "The sun is bright, man. It lights up the whole sky. Lighting up a little ball of glass is nothing." Pong stared at his friend, awed by how much his life had changed. Somkit had been the most bullied kid at Namwan, teased relentlessly for being weak and small. But here he was, well-liked, important even. It filled Pong with a mixture of relief and pride and envy to see how well things had turned out for him. "You can make light," said Pong with a smile, "just like the governor." "I don't make it. I just catch it. What the governor does, that's magic, pure and simple." "How long have you been doing this?" asked Pong. "I actually figured it out just before you showed up," said Somkit, carefully putting away the catcher and jar. "I haven't shown anyone, not even Ampai." "So now you can replace all the mud house orbs with gold," said Pong. "It'll look just like the west side in there." "Eventually, maybe," said Somkit with a sigh. "But I have to wait until the orbs we have fade out first, and that could take a month. You can't double charge an orb. I tried, and it didn't turn out so good." He nodded at the shards of glass swept into a pile in the corner. "Besides, I have to get more wire and sheet metal first, and it's not exactly easy to come by." Something about the sheepish look on Somkit's face made Pong suspicious. "You didn't steal that copper wire, did you?" "Of course not," said Somkit, throwing his hands up. "Don't even joke about that. Ampai doesn't tolerate stealing. But..." Somkit scratched behind his ear and lowered his voice. "The way I got it isn't exactly on the books either. I got it from a friend at the light market. In fact..." Somkit tapped his chin and leaned toward Pong. "I'm supposed to go tonight. You want to come?" "Leave the mud house? No, I couldn't do that. Please, said Somkit. I really want to show you the market, and we could get you a disguise so no one would recognize you in a million years. Pong shook his head and touched his string bracelets. No, that'd be a bad idea. I'm sure there are police there. Not too many, and they're looking for a monk, remember? We'll get you all covered up. And there are so many people at the light market that no one would notice one kid. It's actually the safest place you could go. Pong rubbed his hand over his fuzzy scalp. The last few days in the mud house had been almost unbearably stifling. The thought of seeing something beyond the dark walls of the building was tempting, and Somkit made the light market sound like heaven. I guess if I wore a hat or something. Somkit grinned. Oh, sure, I can definitely get you a hat. Pong narrowed his eyes at his friend. What's with that look? I have no idea what you're talking about, said Somkit. Trust me, this is going to be the best disguise you've ever seen.